There's a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from forgiving the same person for the same thing for the fifth time. Not the exhaustion of doing too much. The exhaustion of knowing that what just happened has happened before. Knowing that the apology you are receiving sounds almost exactly like the last one. Knowing, somewhere beneath all the generous explanations you keep constructing in their favor, that it is going to happen again, and still forgiving anyway. If that sounds familiar, this video is not here to judge you. It is here to help you understand something important. The pattern of forgiving fake friends over and over again is not a character flaw. It is not weakness. It is not stupidity. It is a window into something deep in your psychology, something that formed long before this friendship existed. And understanding what it is will change the way you move through every relationship you have for the rest of your life. Let's talk about it. The first thing to understand is that forgiving someone who has genuinely wronged you, especially repeatedly, requires something that most people don't consciously recognize they have in abundance. A very high tolerance for emotional pain that is disguised as loyalty. Loyalty is a beautiful thing. The ability to stay, to not abandon, to see the best in someone even when they're showing you their worst. These are real virtues. The problem is that virtues can be exploited. And the people who are most loyal, most forgiving, most willing to stay and try again are also, by definition, the most vulnerable to people who take that loyalty and use it without ever truly returning it. This is the architecture of a one-sided friendship. One person gives, one person receives, and the giving person keeps reinterpreting the taking as something other than what it is, because the alternative, seeing it clearly, would mean losing the friendship. And losing the friendship feels unbearable. Why does it feel unbearable? That is the real question. Not, why is this person like this, but why do I keep choosing this? And the answer almost always lives in the past. Psychologists who study relational patterns consistently find that adults who repeatedly forgive betrayal in friendships and relationships, who stay past the point that a healthy boundary would end things, typically learned early in life that love is conditional on accommodation. That being loved requires being easy. That expressing a need or setting a limit risks losing the relationship entirely. That the way to keep people close is to never ask too much of them. This usually comes from childhood. A parent who is unpredictable teaches a child that love must be managed and maintained. A child prays for being so easy, learns their value comes from never being a problem. These patterns are not chosen. They are absorbed. They become the invisible operating system underneath all your adult relationships, including the ones where you keep ending up in the same position. Here is what fake friendship actually looks like. Because the word fake can feel dramatic, and sometimes the situation is more subtle than a friend who is outright malicious. Fake friendship is not always performed with malice. Sometimes it is performed with obliviousness. A person so focused on their own needs that yours simply do not register. Sometimes it is performed with charm. A person who is genuinely warm and engaging when things are easy, but disappears the moment you need something real. Sometimes it is performed with intermittent kindness, a pattern where periods of real connection are followed by neglect or betrayal, and the real connection is just frequent enough to keep you hopeful. That last pattern is particularly potent. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement, and it is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. When reward is unpredictable, when it comes sometimes but not always, the brain becomes more invested, not less, more vigilant, more hopeful, more attached to obtaining the next reward. Intermittent kindness from a friend who is mostly unavailable or mostly taken creates a psychological bind that is genuinely difficult to escape. Not because you are weak, but because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The friendship that is sometimes wonderful and sometimes terrible is harder to leave than one that is simply terrible, because you keep waiting for the wonderful to come back and stay. Now let's talk about forgiveness itself, because there is something important here that gets conflated constantly, and the conflation causes enormous harm. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. Forgiveness, real forgiveness, is something you do for yourself. It is the internal process of releasing the resentment, the anger, the ongoing hurt that comes from being wronged. It is not pretending that what happened didn't happen. It is not approving of what was done. It is releasing yourself from the ongoing cost of carrying it. Forgiveness, in this sense, is always worth doing. The person who wronged you does not need to be present for you to forgive them. They do not need to deserve it. You forgive because continuing to carry the wound costs you more than releasing it. Reconciliation is different. Reconciliation is choosing to restore the relationship, to let the person back in, to offer them continued access to your time, your trust, your emotional investment. And reconciliation, unlike forgiveness, should be conditional. It should be earned. It should follow demonstrated change, not promised change. Most people who say they keep forgiving fake friends are actually conflating the two. They are forgiving and reconciling simultaneously, as if the internal release of resentment obligates them to external restoration of the relationship. It does not. You can fully, genuinely forgive someone and simultaneously decide that you will not be giving them another opportunity to repeat what they already did 3 times. That is not unforgiveness. That is wisdom. The question worth sitting with is this: when you forgive this friend again, are you doing it because you have genuinely processed the hurt and released it? Or are you doing it because the discomfort of the conflict feels worse than the discomfort of the betrayal, and ending the conflict quickly, even at the cost of your own boundaries, feels like relief? For people who grew up learning that accommodation keeps love safe, the answer is usually the second one. The forgiveness is not spiritual generosity. It is conflict avoidance disguised as generosity. And the cost is real: accumulated resentment that never resolves, a growing sense of invisibility, and the quiet erosion of self-respect that happens every time you accept less than you deserve and tell yourself it is fine. Now let's talk about what change actually looks like, because understanding the pattern is only useful if it leads somewhere. The first thing that has to change is the internal story. Most people who overforgive have a story that sounds something like this: if I just explain myself more clearly, they will understand. If I am just patient enough, they will change. If I love them better, they will become the friend I need them to be. If I stop expecting so much, the friendship will feel okay. All of those stories place the solution inside you and inside your behavior. They are all forms of magical thinking rooted in the belief that the right amount of accommodation will eventually produce a different outcome from the same person. It usually will not. People change when they have both the motivation and the capacity to change, and when the cost of staying the same becomes higher than the cost of changing. If a friend has been able to repeat the same behavior across multiple forgiveness cycles without meaningful consequence, the cost of staying the same is functionally zero. Why would they change? What creates change, when change is possible, is a boundary that has a real consequence. Not a speech, not an ultimatum delivered and then walked back. An actual limit clearly communicated that you are genuinely willing to maintain. Something like, this cannot keep happening. If it happens again, I will need to step back from this friendship. And then, if it happens again, stepping back. This is where most people falter. The limit gets communicated. The friend apologizes or gets upset or appeals to your history and your loyalty and the good times. And the old pattern activates. The one that says keeping this person from being hurt is more important than maintaining your limit. And the limit dissolves. The limit only works if you can tolerate the discomfort of maintaining it. And being able to tolerate that discomfort requires believing, at a fundamental level, that you deserve to have your limits respected, that your needs matter, that a friendship which requires you to abandon yourself to maintain it is not actually a friendship worth maintaining. That belief, I deserve relationships that do not require me to disappear inside them, is the thing that changes everything. It is also the thing that is hardest to build, especially for people whose early experience taught them the opposite. Building it looks like small, repeated acts of self-regard. Noticing when something feels wrong instead of immediately explaining it away. Saying something is not okay even when that is uncomfortable. Staying in the tension of a conflict long enough to see what the other person does with it rather than smoothing it over instantly. And, perhaps most importantly, begin building other friendships alongside this one. One of the things that keeps people trapped in one-sided friendships is scarcity. The unconscious belief that this is the only connection available, that losing it means being alone. When you widen your relational world and invest in other people, the hold any one bad friendship has over you loosens. You stop choosing between this friend and nothing. You start choosing between this friend and something better. Here is what I wanted to take from this video. Forgiving fake friends over and over again says something about your mind. It says that you are capable of enormous generosity, that you believe in people, that you value loyalty and continuity and the depth that comes from long relationships. Those are not small things. Those are beautiful qualities. What it also says is that somewhere along the way, you learn to direct that generosity outward at the expense of directing any of it inward. At the expense of your own needs, your own limits, your own right to be in relationships where the generosity is mutual. The goal is not to become someone who never forgives. The goal is to become someone who can forgive completely, release the resentment fully, without confusing that release for an obligation to keep offering the same access to the same person who already showed you multiple times what they do with it. You can love someone and let them go. You can wish them well and maintain a distance. You can forgive everything and still decide that you're done. That is not coldness. That is self-respect, and it is something you have always deserved. If this video helped you see something more clearly, please like it and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Subscribe for more honest conversations about the patterns that shape our lives. You deserve friendships that do not require you to keep surviving them.